So, ladies and gentlemen, Charlotte is about to come on talking about how to reclaim the real worthy you. This woman is a powerhouse. She's going to really free you up to be your greatest possible self. So you definitely want to stay tuned. Before we dive into the conversation, I'm talking to you because you're becoming your greatest possible self. However I can support you in that, let's figure it out. Whether it's continuing your journey with Charlotte, getting her book, staying tuned to the 12-hour marathon, finding a coach, finding someone who you really resonate with on the 12-hour marathon, and continuing your journey, going deeper. I really invite you to go deeper. Invest in yourself, whether that's continuing to stay tuned to podcasts, seminars, coaching, content that really inspires you and makes a difference with you, or whatever that is, okay? Stay tuned and keep showing up, okay? Keep running through the finish line, keep taking one step at a time. Next up is the iTunes review of the week. This week it's by Anthony A93. Anthony says, Chris the man burns. Every podcast episode gets better and better. Not only that, you can tell how present and interested Chris is in each of the experts he brings on the show. Thanks so much, Anthony. I super appreciate that, and I love it. I love learning. I love being able to share this information with you listening out in the audience right now, so thank you for being here. Wouldn't be possible without you, and it definitely wouldn't be possible without our epic guests who are out to inspire, impact, and change the world. So I appreciate you being here. If you want a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour live stream, go to beergps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self on the Apple Podcast Store, and you can find us there and go give us a review, subscribe while you're there so you can get all the latest updates and episodes and keep becoming your greatest possible self. I'm going to introduce Charlotte in just a second here. Before that, though, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes because this is going to be full of wisdom and gold that you can apply right away and really use to transform your life. And speaking of transformation, one of these ideas that Charlotte shares about that we dive into in this conversation has the power to change the rest of your life. So stay tuned from start to finish because one idea can make all the difference. So let's introduce Charlotte and then we'll bring her on the screen. Charlotte Eléa is the author of the book To Be Worthy and an expert in emotional self-healing. She is an intuitive guide and mentor to those who are ready to know who they really are. She is passionate about leading people to the discovery that they may take the painful, difficult, and wounded parts of themselves and transform them into freaking gold. I love that. She has a background in clinical psychotherapy and has been a student of her intuition for over 20 years. She's developed unique approaches to self-healing and self-discovery through her own experiences of deep transformation and healing. And we are going to have a rockin' conversation with Charlotte here today. Charlotte, are you ready to rock the house, Superwoman?
Most definitely.
I love it. We're going to have so much fun. Thank you for being here and just all the wisdom and what you've gone through to get to this point. I just acknowledge you for your growth and your journey and using what you've gone through to be able to serve other people. So we're going to dive into that whole conversation and what we're here to talk about. First, though, I want to talk about running through the finish line. What does that mean for you, Charlotte? Run through the finish line.
What does it mean to run to the finish line? It means that I'm already beginning another marathon or another journey. I was meditating on that, on the theme today, and I was thinking, like, is there really ever a finish? Like, is there really? Isn't it the thing that we sort of give our ego in order to like compensate it, to know that we're going somewhere? But really, when we get there, the next journey has already begun. Because we're all on this constant journey throughout our life of healing, of growth and expansion.
I love it. I love it. See, this is so great because a lot of the guests have responded similarly. Like there is no finish line to really, how do you show up in life with the most love, with most expansion, connected to our infinite potential, to our source, rather than connected or living through like the ego, which is limited, right? Like the ego self is limited versus connected to our infinite capabilities and capacity.
Yeah, exactly. I set goals for myself. It's like to compensate the ego. So the ego has something. So it frees up the rest of me to then be in the journey itself, to be in the process, because that's really what life is about, is to be on the journey. It's not to get to where we're going.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. You've made the ego your partner on this
Yes.
journey? How do I satisfy? How do I show you that I love you, ego, by creating measurable goals and
Yes.
dealing in the 3D realm while still being connected to some higher source and self
Yeah.
consistently?
Yeah, I really believe in befriending the ego. I think that our
Yeah.
ego is actually here to serve us,
Mm,
and so when we come into a place of trying to kill off the ego, or in this place of thinking everything the ego tells us is bad, we're really in a place where we're criticizing, we're being awful to ourselves, because the
yeah.
ego is an essential part of ourselves. And so it just needs to have a proper role, right?
Mm, I want to keep going on this, Charlotte. But before we go on this, tell people a little bit more about how you're serving your clients today. You got a book coming out. This is such a great start to this conversation. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so I do have a book coming out called To Be Worthy, and it's all about reclaiming self-worth. And it's
Mm,
about the journey that I went on, my personal journey of reclaiming my self-worth through being worthy of love, being worthy of being the real me, like
mm,
all of me, not just the light and beautiful parts of me, but the darker, shadowy parts of me as well, about being worthy and making new choices. So that
mm,
means being worthy of taking risks, of taking chances, of pushing oneself beyond what the beliefs that you currently hold about yourself, and being worthy of being happy. And so
mm.
creating a life for yourself that meets you rather than you meeting it.
I love it. I'm all about it, Charlotte.
Yeah.
And
So
that's what you're up to today. And
yeah, so
you have a
that's
lot.
really what I've been up to, is this book.
Yeah.
And I have one-on-one clients, but then everything else is about bringing this book into the world.
So great. So I know you have a journey that you've been on that really has you embody this story, embody this message that you're out to share with others. Let's go back on that journey and talk about what really inspires you to help people with self-healing and transforming themselves, owning their worthiness. Where did it all begin for you, Charlotte?
Well, if we want to go back to the very beginning, it all began in childhood. And I was one of those kids where I never really felt like I fit in,
Mm,
and I always felt there was something wrong with me. I didn't fit into my family, and so there was this. So I always had this lingering, really kind of strong belief system that operated in the back of me, that I needed to adapt to the world,
mm,
and that I needed to fix myself.
mm,
And so moving into adulthood, I went into careers where I was good at it, and I received a lot of external praise for the
mm,
work I did, but I was internally miserable. And I kept I was in this frame of mind. I was locked in this frame of mind for so long that I just had to keep searching for the right job,
mm.
right? The right place. I'm going to find the place where I fit.
Something external is
Yes,
finally gonna
there's
click
something
and
external
fit.
that's
Yeah.
finally going to validate
Yeah.
my self-worth.
Wow.
And I got to the point where I had almost exhausted all resources, and I took a minimum wage job because I just stopped caring. I was
Mm,
just like, you know what? I'm just not going to find it. And so I'm just going to take this job. It'll be fine. And then as soon as I did that, I got fired from that job.
wow.
And, this was like an easy job. And the reasons why it was at the store, and the reasons why I was getting fired, I mean, it made no sense. And so I was just, so at that moment, I threw up my hands and I said, okay, you know what, universe, I don't get it. I don't
Mm,
know. Everything I've been doing has been wrong. My approach is wrong. I do not know how to make myself happy. I do not know how to fit into this world.
mm,
And at that moment, I just stopped. I surrendered. I stopped searching. And that's the minute I started actually hearing myself,
mm,
that I had been turning away from myself for so many years, refusing to listen to all the messages. I've
mm,
always been an incredibly intuitive person. And yet I never valued my intuition, even though my
mm.
intuition was the part of me that led me my entire life, my sensitivity and intuition. And so when I surrendered and finally stopped searching, I finally started listening and hearing. And I was like, oh, what's it like to actually just spend my days listening
Yeah.
and following my own internal cues? And where that started to lead me, it's doing things that I loved and enjoyed doing, but also I began to hear how wounded I was and how much I had deep wounds I was holding about my self-worth. And so I began a journey of healing myself.
Man. So I know that there's like so much you just shared there that we can dive into. I want to talk about the moment of surrender. And for you, it was getting fired from a job and just throwing your hands up to the universe and saying, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what makes me happy. I'm doing this wrong. Do you feel like that's something that a lot of people would really benefit from, is just the willingness to admit that we are doing it wrong? And universe, like I'm really not happy. I feel like something's missing. I've been efforting so much. I've been trying so much and I still can't figure it out. Like, I don't know, like that, like just the simple declaration and then giving that power back to the universe so that it can reflect back to us what is important.
Yeah, I think so. I think the declaration, a lot of people see that declaration as weak. I see it as really, really strong because it's so humble.
Right.
So as long as it's coming from a place of self-love, like that's the key, is it coming from a place of self-love and self-compassion,
Wow.
you know, of holding yourself, that the declaration is a declaration of love, right? Rather than pain, rather than woundedness, where you're saying like, no, I can fix this. No. This in me, this just the fact that I don't know is wrong. And so I'm going to continue to think that I can, like, that I'm right. And that I'm going to keep trying to prove myself. Right.
Yeah.
So I think that it creates so much spaciousness when we do that, when it's like, when that declaration is met with softness of like, exhale. It's okay that I don't know. It's okay that I don't have the answer to this. It's okay that I can like really, really give myself over to a higher power that lives within me.
Yeah. So I hear that what comes to my mind is a lot of people might do it in a sense of victimness and fear and like exhaustion. It's like, it's almost versus, it's like trying to hold on to something. Like, I'm so tired of holding on to this. Universe, almost in like blame, like, screw you, universe, show me what I'm doing wrong. Show me what I need to do differently. I'm so tired. I'm so exhausted of this. Versus, universe, like, I love myself so much, like, I'm done. Like, you know better. You have the answers. Like, I just want to feel love. I want to feel worthy, and I know you're more powerful than me. So it's like it feels like there's two different places that you can come from in that declaration that would have it either work and be beneficial or not work.
Right. One is actually, the first you said is actually disowning what you're going through and saying, this is not my problem. The second one is saying, this is me. This is what I'm moving through. Like I need love for this. And I deserve love for whatever I'm going through right now. So it's actually moving more fully into it, the second.
It's like facing the uncomfortability, embracing it rather than trying to push it away and run from it.
Right. Rather than making it somebody else's responsibility, you're actually taking more ownership for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So powerful. Okay, so you had this moment where you like surrendered to something bigger. How did your journey evolve from that point?
Well, at that point, I knew I was never going back to like the world of traditional work. I just knew that was not for me. And I just was like kind of like trying things as I go. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, I'm sure you have a lot of entrepreneurs that watch your podcast. And I think there's this something that often entrepreneurs get trapped in, is that like, we have to like know exactly everything about our business, you know, until we launch it. Right. And I really did like the opposite. I just was like, okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, I'm going to try this. Okay, I'm going to try this. And whatever I was trying was sort of what I was like learning and moving through. And I got to a point though where I really felt myself holding back me in my business. So it was like, oh, I'm showing what I can do. I'm helping other people, but I wasn't revealing anything about me. And that's when I realized that I needed to, there was a greater journey on healing my self-worth that I really needed to do within myself. And that I could actually open my own gifts, because I knew I had an incredible gift of going deep, of uncovering, excavating the unconscious, right? And so I declared to myself, I'm going to heal the shame that I feel in revealing myself to others. Mm. And I made that declaration and decision. And then my own intuition, my own inner guidance system took me on that journey. Wow. And so this is not a journey that's like, I went here and talked to this person and da 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 da. It was, I went to bed and had this dream. I woke up this day and I was in tears. You know, it was that kind of spiritual journey.
Yeah. Well, I also hear that it's not immediate. It's you can't really plan or predict where it's going to go. It's just on a daily basis, saying, guide me, lead me. What's the next layer of shame or guilt or whatever has been piled on over my journey, on like the ego, and that's trying to protect me. How can I give that love? How can I share that? How can I release that from me? And that happens in so many different ways. There's so many different exercises, there's so many different life circumstances that come to help us free ourselves from that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know that there's people in the audience who are going through tons of shame, tons of guilt, tons of regret, and they're holding stuff that they know that they don't want to hold anymore. How can they start to move through that stuff, Charlotte?
So it begins, like you said, with making a decision, that I'm going to move through this, and then committing to that process no matter what it looks like. Because in order to go through something, you have to go through it. You can't go over it. You can't go around it. What was that? Yeah. There was like a childhood saying or something about that. And so you have to go through it. And so it's committing yourself and saying, okay, am I ready to devote myself to moving through whatever I need to move through to reach this place of healing within myself, to release the shames, release this guilt, release this fear, whatever is sort of like stopping you. And then the other piece about it is to remain incredibly curious and compassionate. So I think that those two are huge keys in really doing anything that's going to be self-healing. It's because curiosity allows us to be just really open to what is surfacing. So being observant of what are the thoughts that are all sudden driving your mind today? What are the dreams that you're having? Well, who are the people you're meeting? What conversations are you having that are triggering the F out of you? Because whatever then it starts to happen in your life after you made this declaration is there to help you move through it, is there to trigger you, to bring up those feelings, right? So that you can move forward. And so that second piece, compassion, self-compassion is so important. So the reaction that a lot of people have when they do get triggered, their shame comes up, their guilt comes up, their fear, they're like, oh no, oh my God, I have to get rid of this. Oh God, right? We go into this place of sort of self-paralysis. Yeah. And rather than that, can you soften into it? Can you actually lean into what you're feeling? Instead of blocking and saying, okay, I just have to find a way through to get rid of this, can you actually invite it in and be friends with it and start asking it questions, ask it what it wants, ask it why it's there? Because the thing is, everything that we feel has incredible wisdom. And that's such a key to self-worth is being right with all of yourself. So making friends with all parts of yourself. We cannot release anything until we accept it. That's a famous quote by Carl Jung that I just love and I say often, because it's just so, so true. And I see and I experience even within myself, I think with so many of us, we say that we accept something, but we still really want to like get rid of it and we really want to move through it. And so that's what the journey is about. Like, can you stay with whatever you're moving through and allow it to have its own journey, to really trust it? To be like, okay, I'm going to present you, and I'm going to trust that you will complete and go as soon as you have had your day, as soon as I have fully listened to you, as soon as you are complete, right? Because we shift and change. And so knowing that whatever you're moving through will shift and change when you fully listen to yourself.
And I know there's emotions that come up, let's say shame, something from the past, and we say, hey, what's going on? Why am I experiencing this shame again? Show me what lesson, show me the gift, show me what I have not yet accepted about you, and we have a communication with it, and then let's say it gets to a point of completion. I think a lot of us might feel like we've completed some work, and then we continue to experience it. Why does it keep coming up? Is it just not complete? Are there deeper levels? Is that always going to be there? What's your opinion on that?
That's an interesting, because actually when I was on my journey of healing my shame, I don't want to give it away, but I guess I will in this interview. But at the completion of the interview, what I realized was that like my shame wasn't going away. What had transformed is my relationship to it. That I could love my shame. I could love myself and know that it's a teacher for me. So I think that every time, we move through cycles of healing. And so there's a cycle when our shame's going to come up. And in that moment, it has something to teach us. And every time we move through another cycle where we meet ourselves with love, every time that cycle gets easier and quicker, and we move through it with more grace, more ease. And so, yes, it is going to come up again, but it's not going to knock you over. It doesn't have to knock you over. You can be like, okay, yep, there you are again. Hello. Okay. What do you have to teach me? Okay, great. Okay. And move on. We can all get to a point like that where we can move through whatever we're feeling, really in a place of joy, actually.
Speaking of the curiosity to identify, to locate, to relate to whatever is coming up, is there a process that you recommend, or how to communicate with that, to be able to have a relationship with it, to feel it, to acknowledge it, to accept it? Because I'm sure a lot of people might think, hey, I can have a conversation intellectually with it. I can journal about it. Is there any specific way that you recommend doing that?
I think to each or his or her own. I do definitely recommend simply everybody, and I'm sure most of your listeners already have this, just having at least 30 minutes a day where you're simply just listening to yourself. And rather than just immediately going into what you are envisioning for yourself, but first, really into what is present within yourself, and whether that's speaking it out loud into your phone, or journaling, or using oracle cards, right? Those are beautiful ways. We can have a lot of tools actually that help us have deeper mirrors into ourselves, where we can sit in self-reflection. Like a great prompt is, if I'm honest with myself, then I would say,
wow,
right?
That's good. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I'm honest with myself, I'd say blank. And so just giving ourselves a prompt, a starting point, so that the intuition, so that the thing that's trying to bubble up at the surface, just trying to be heard, trying to be seen, trying to be validated, and we just keep pushing it to the side, the emotion we're ignoring kind of thing.
It gives us permission, we need to have permission, give ourselves permission to voice those parts of ourselves that we don't want to voice, that we feel like make us whatever, like not a good enough entrepreneur, not enough good enough coach, sabotaging our happiness, all of these things that we're taught actually often in the self-improvement world, because there is such a focus on the positive. And so we also need a place to have our wounds and our shadows really honored and embraced and met with love. And so I think that is a great prompt that gives us just simple permission to speak it. I don't believe that in speaking it we make it a reality. In speaking it, actually we gain power over it, because it moves it from the unconscious to the conscious.
Wow. What's the difference between speaking it so that it becomes reality, and speaking it to free ourselves from it?
Meaning it within, I think within our own sacred space and our sacred container. So you're meaning it from a place of intention and consciousness and love, versus letting it just kind of come out of you, right? And sort of from that unconscious place or non-intentional place. So I think that whenever we meet it in a place of like, I'm coming now, and assuming that you have all these different parts of yourselves, and it's like you're having sort of a group council, and it's like knowing. I mean, I have a spiritual practice, and I always we connect however we want to connect to source or our highest selves or spirit, whatever you like to call it, the universe. I like to connect to the earth and to my highest self and my guides. And so I know that I'm being held in that space as I witness, these parts of me that need to be witnessed. And so it's in that place. I love that word witness, it's where you're witnessing yourself. You're not actually putting this part of you in the driver's seat. It's when we put them in the driver's seat, or that part of us takes the driver's seat, right? Takes the driver's seat, sometimes without us even being in awareness, sometimes unconsciously. Because I do believe that will happen is if we don't voice it, that part of us is going to be driving it, because she's going to be like, oh, well, they're not going to listen to me, so I'm going to take control.
Wow. This is gold, Charlotte. I'm loving it. So I heard this group counsel aspect of different parts of yourself and some kind of daily practice to allow those parts to be seen, to be heard, to be validated, to be witnessed was a big key word there. And the prompt of, if I'm honest with myself, I'd say, that's a great kind of flowing into whatever wants to come out will come out.
Yeah. Another little trick I like to share is like pretend that you are your best friend. Like, how would you talk to your best friend if she came to you and she shared all these, or she or he shared all these really intimate things that were going on that she was so scared to share? How would you meet her? Right? You would meet her from a place of compassion, of love. You'd give her a hug. You'd say it's okay, And so meet yourself in that place. Meet yourself as if you are your best friend rather than your critic.
Yeah. I also hear like a kind of an innocent little child. How would we treat them? So like,
exactly. Yeah. Yes. How would you treat? Because and that's ding, ding, ding. You're getting to the next really great point that I would love to share is that yes, most of these pieces of us, these wounded, these pieces of us that feel shame and fear and guilt and all those things, they're coming from our inner child. Yeah, they're coming from a very young, a very scared part of ourselves. Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. So just having that inner child, relating to it as innocent, with love, without judgment, with curiosity, with compassion, like that whole thing goes into relating to this emotion, not as if it's threatening, but rather as if it wants to belong. It's like a part of the whole, and it just wants love. So so what is it like? What does it look like? How can we show this part love?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because when it comes down to it, like we all just want love, I mean, we do. As human beings, that's our greatest need is love. And I believe that as humans, our greatest gift is compassion. So that's the greatest gift we can give ourselves and others.
I love it. How does self-worth play into all this? Like, what is self-worth in your own words? Did we already cover it? Like what that is?
Only briefly. So I think this is all self-worth. Self-worth is how I relate to me, and how it's not how I relate to myself on good days. It's actually more importantly, how do you relate to yourself on your bad days? How do you relate to all the parts of you? Because it's really easy to relate to, and to love and be in a good place with those parts of you that other people admire, that you show to the world. But what about those parts of you that you don't show to the world? How do you relate? How do you come in relationship with those parts? And so to me, self-worth is really about wholeness. Like, how can I embrace being fully whole? And how can I bring out of the shadows those parts of me that I have for very, very long time, maybe my whole life, like kept hidden, because I believed that they made me unworthy, because I believed that if I show this part to my parents, to my family, to my classmates, to my teacher. I would be reprimanded. I would be rejected. I would not receive love. I mean, it comes back to that need of receiving love. And so it's about taking those parts and loving them, because when we can love ourselves, then we heal those childhood wounds.
Yeah. I hear that there's a conversation, a dialogue that we get to have with ourselves first. What role does sharing these discoveries or having dialogue with others about these things, where does that fit into the whole mix? Like when and where do we bring in other people? Like, for example, I have a men's mastermind. At what point would it be effective to share these kinds of things with them?
That's such a good question, because it is such an important part of the healing process, going back to being witnessed, not just by yourself, but by others that you trust. And I think that it is a step in the healing process. And I think that it is as soon as we can come into a place of softness and curiosity as to what we're going through and acceptance, as soon as we can look at it and be like, okay, going to that place of surrender, right? Okay, this is what's going on. And then if we come to a place of, what, I think, this is in sort of being able to work with our higher consciousness, and having our intuition, our highest self. If we have that voice in us that says it is going to be really healing to actually share this with another and be witnessed, receive other support, which, as you know, when you do that, I mean, like, shame does not live in open spaces. Shame lives in really hidden, dark, closed spaces. And it does. It's like immediately banishes the shame to do that. But I do think that is something that we each need to feel into when we're ready for that moment, because we can also overwhelm ourselves. We can go into, if we share too much too soon with not the right people, we can get major vulnerability hangers. We can be even more overwhelmed by shame. So starting small, like starting with people you really trust. I think that's really, like you have a mastermind. I'm in a mastermind too. I also have groups of women who I get on calls with every week, where we can share these things, where we really trust each other. And so building those networks and those connections with people where you all come together and share, because it's so healing.
Yeah, and I think even the prompt of, if I'm honest with myself, I'd say, I think that's such a great prompt to even bring into these circles, right? And say, hey, whatever comes out, it's like what's meant to come out. And I also think asking ourselves, hey, are these people who I trust? Am I willing to go deep with them? Do I feel held? Do I feel safe with them? I think that as long as we feel good and say, I'm willing to have this discussion, and I want to be the example. I want to show them that they also have a safe space, and I want to be that contribution to them as well. I think that's a really great place I would come from.
Totally, yeah. And there is something really magical that I've experienced, and you've probably experienced this too many times in those sorts of sharing in circles, is that as soon as I share it, it's done. It's gone. Like, that's all it wanted. It just wanted to be seen. My feelings just wanted to be seen, and then they're done. And so, like we can move through healing so quickly that way.
I love it.
Yeah.
I know a concept that you talk about is radical realization. Tell us about that and what that means for you.
Sure. So I believe that we all have hidden gifts. We have things about ourselves that we've internalized are the opposite of a gift, that are that if we shared, people would be like, no one wants to see that. No one wants to know that about me. No one, so we all have these parts of ourselves. And for me, that was my extreme sensitivity. I was very sensitive as a child. I carried and held all of my family's emotions, my mom's depression, my dad's anger. And I was so overwhelmed. And I also really felt the collective energy as well. I had chronic stomach aches, and so and then when I would express sort of whatever was going on, it was just in this really messy way, and because I didn't know what I was feeling, and so my family would just get really frustrated with me, and so I internalized this belief that my sensitivity is a burden, and I can't express how I really feel, or I'm going to scare somebody away, and so the radical realization is, coming in when I'm doing this healing journey with myself, was that my sensitivity is a gift. It is a gift that I can so pick up on other people's emotions and express them and feel into the pain of the world. That is an incredible gift. Like, sensitivity is such an important gift. And it has, for many people, it is something that they internalized was wrong. And so I think that we all have that about our childhood, like maybe as a kid, you were always getting yourself in trouble, right? Maybe you're always running out of the house, and there's like, oh, I don't know if this is about yourself. I'm just going to use you as a name. Oh, Chris, where did he go now? Right. And getting grounded. So, and so then you held yourself back, or you went through a wild time in your 20s where you're risk taking uncontrollably because it lived in your shadows. Wow. So the radical realization there would be that, like, risk taking is a profound gift of taking chances, of breaking out of the box, right? And so I think we all have these qualities that we in childhood, that our parents, from no fault of their own, they were just doing the best that they could, kind of squashed. And so we put it in the hiding. So the radical realization is the things that you are most afraid of sharing, the things that you most want to deny about yourself, are actually the things that you need to actually put on the front of you and share with the world.
Wow. And so people can take an inventory of what they feel most ashamed or afraid, or try to minimize and hide from the world. Is it as simple as just looking back at our past and saying what feels like the greatest burden that I have, brought to myself or the people around me, and start inventorying like that?
I think that's one way. And I think also listening to your fears. I think your fears say a lot about actually what your soul actually really wants you to do. Because what we are afraid of is something we're reacting against, where we're being guided towards something, and then we're reacting in fear. So our ego reacts in fear when we're growing, we're going towards something. So actually our fears often say exactly what we are being called to move into and through. Right.
And sitting with our fears.
For example, like, I was most afraid of sharing my authentic self, my feelings, my journey, with others, with the world. And that's exactly, now I know what is my medicine. That's what I'm called to do. Like, I'm putting out a book with my entire personal journey it gets really personal. I'm putting it out to the world,
Wow. So it's sitting with that fear in those moments of quiet solitude, like a daily practice, and seeing what's coming up. Like, what am I afraid of, and being introspective, curious, playful, graceful about that stuff, and not being attached, but like, just, hey, what am I most afraid of? What's coming up? What's a theme in my life that keeps repeating itself that I haven't yet integrated or healed from?
Yeah, because if, like, for example, if you're like really afraid of rejection, like if you're thinking like, if I do this, I'm so going to be rejected, then it's likely that you just really need to do that so that you can heal your wound of rejection, so that you can know that you actually won't be rejected. Actually, you're going to be celebrated. And I know that's like easier said than done. And people ask a lot, like, how do you actually move through fear? And you probably know this too. You just do it. You don't wait for fear to like go away. You actually meet it and say, "Hello, fear. We're doing it anyway."
Yeah. Well, I think what's really important about that is to make a decision, so to speak, when we're in a place of like peacefulness, or let's say serenity or ease, like when we're seeing the fear from an objective place, and then saying, hey, here's what I'm going to do. Here's my plan. Here's my thing that I'm going to go take action on, that totally confronts this, and the fear will come up to meet us because like that's what we expected. That's the reason
Yes.
why we designed this objective, to grow, to become our
Yes.
greatest possible selves. And in those moments, like how do we support ourselves? Do we have, coaches? Do we have accountability partners? Do we have
Right. Totally.
whoever who can help us, or whatever structure can help us through those moments? I think that
Yes.
it's in those silent moments that we can say, I know what I've been resisting. Here's the plan on how I'm going to meet that. Now I get to figure out how do I support myself through this season of confronting the fear.
Yes. Yeah. I love that. Like knowing in advance the fear is going to be there. And so how can you create the support to move through the fear? Yeah.
That's a practical example of this is I was afraid of getting rejected in my early entrepreneur days. And I said, okay, what's the best way I can overcome this, or I can break through this? And I said, well, I'm also concerned about women and women rejecting me. So I went to Cal State Fullerton in Southern California, and I said, I'm going to go ask 50 women for their phone number. And I don't care if I get it or not, but I'm just going to walk up and do it. And if it's a yes, great. If not, if it's a no, great. Either way, I'm just going to keep going and like strengthen my muscle around that. So, how can we face as many rejections or whatever it is that we're most afraid of as possible, so that we're like bulletproof and we're healed from it,
And I love it because you made it playful. You made it into a game.
Yeah.
I think that's also so key, is like not to have everything be so heavy in life and death. It's like, just try something, like allow it to be in that place of play. Like, I'm just going to try this. I'm just going to try it and see what happens, Yeah. And knowing you're going into something, embracing whatever happens, that everything we're doing is we're just trying it.
Yeah. It's probably a dance, because we can put so much weight. I know I've put so much weight on breaking through things, healing things, dealing with the shame. So it's like to really presence ourselves to that playfulness, to that curiosity, to that wonder, to that childlike mindset right before we're about to do it, and say, hey, like, how can we play? How can we have fun? How can we try this? I think that's so important.
And that's going right back to how you opened this around like the journey, having it being the journey rather than the finish line, right? Yeah. So it's like, this is the current challenge, that I am like playing in this longer journey. And so how can you be really in that moment, in this playful space? Because it is the moment. It isn't, how the outcome that you're going to get really isn't about the outcome. It's about the experience itself. Yeah.
I love it. Tell us more about your book, Charlotte, and like what was the deciding moment that you said, I'm going to write it? What can people expect when they get into it? I know just even bringing the book into reality, into fruition, was a journey in and of itself for you. Tell us a little bit more about the book.
Thank you. Yeah, so it was a calling. I writing is something I've just loved to do for a really long time, and I've written a lot of fiction on my own that I've never felt a calling to publish. It was just for me. And then, it was 2 years ago, and I just started, I really want to start writing a book. I want to start writing about this self-healing journey I've been on and what I've learned. And so I just started writing, and I didn't know where it was taking me. And then halfway through, I actually stopped for 6 months because I don't know, I just didn't feel called to it anymore. And then it came back to me, and I realized that there was a lot of healing I needed to do in the middle to kind of complete it and to go through that second half of it. So yeah, it was actually a wonderful experience, because writing the book itself was a way for me to integrate my own wisdom. It was a way for me to channel, and actually I was healing my self-worth while I wrote the book. And so the book was its own journey. It wasn't actually, while I was writing it, I wasn't thinking, how many people is this book going to reach? I just loved writing it. I love being in that place of deep self-reflection and compassion and love and learning from my own experiences. And so I think that the reader is really going to experience that too. Something that I really love about this book is that it is like, I do talk to the person that's reading the book, right? I'm not being like declarative and preachy. I'm not just in my own world. I'm in a conversation with you where I'm sharing my journey and reflect and offering moments of reflection for you to feel into where you connect with this journey, what you're receiving from it. And then at the end of each chapter, there's a practice for you to do, because each chapter is framed around a wounding belief that I released and a truth I discovered about myself. So that practice is there for you to then heal your wounding belief that is connected to your self-worth and to discover your own truth.
Wow. So there's different chapters around these beliefs that you picked up that were not true and how you healed from them. Is it chronological? Is there what's like the ordering? Is it like the ordering of beliefs that in how you overcame them? Chronological in terms of the chapters? Like how did you structure the book?
It went through many different iterations of structuring, by the way, in the editorial process. But it's somewhat chronological. It does start off with the roots in childhood. And then the first section is really all about relationships and how it's about, it's called I Am Worthy of Love. And it's really about how we can reframe self-worth from a place of loving ourselves versus receiving someone else's love. Because when we're children, we think that to be worthy, you have to receive love from our parents. And that's the initial wound, right? And so it's really that transformation of how we can then instead discover self-worth within ourselves by loving ourselves. And then the second section is all about my journeys, my highs and very lows through my career path, and how I went down many different career paths that were really wrong for me, and what I learned every step of the way, and how I then came to that moment of surrender. And that's called I'm Worthy of Being the Real Me, because that was the moment where I really learned the gifts of self-acceptance, the gifts of surrender, the gifts of listening to my emotions. And that's when that's like in that place of like, can I be worthy when I feel like my life is a freaking wreck? Because yes, you can. You are worthy, even when you think your life is a wreck. And then the third section is my journey of becoming an entrepreneur and of developing my gifts as a intuitive guide, as a coach, and now as a mentor, as a healer, really. And my journey towards that, of really realizing that I had a deeper healing journey that I was on. It wasn't just about arriving at this one job. And then the final piece is just continues that. And it's I'm worthy of happiness. And that's like, how do you live day to day in a way where you're shifting, you're crafting your world in a way that makes you happy versus ideals that you may be taught or that you may be carrying that really aren't true.
This is so powerful. I love it. So this is the first book that you're publishing, right? And you're writing this as a healing journey for you. I think anyone who is feeling like they're lacking worthiness, they're not feeling love, they're not feeling happiness, they're not feeling like their greatest possible selves, this would be a really great resource for them to just have some practices, have some reflection, a conversation with you to be able to check in with what's blocking them, what's feeling out of alignment, where do they not feel connected with being complete and being worthy and being loved.
Yeah.
That's good. That's so good. What is your vision with the book? Like where do you see this going, taking you? What do you see in the future?
Well, my vision is and the book is written primarily for women, though I do believe there are a lot of men who are going to really benefit from it as well. But I think that women more suffer from wounds of self-worth than men do. I don't know if you agree with that, but so it's written for women, and so my intention is for as many women as possible who need this book to receive it, however the book comes into their hands. I mean, I'm really open to this book having a journey of her own and reaching whoever she needs to in whatever way. And so I, as her mother or as her author, I'm just simply opening up as many pathways for that to happen. So that means making decisions like I'm self-publishing it. because I knew that I needed to be responsible for this book's journey. And that it wasn't in alignment for me to give it over to a publisher. Mm. It also means that, for example, like I'm not just selling it on Kindle Select, right? I'm also selling hard copies of it. I'm opening it to being in bookstores, in libraries, wherever it can get to. I really want, it's not for me about the individual book sales. I mean, those will be great, but it's really about setting this book free and allowing it to be passed to person to person to person. And that's the vision I have, really, is the book will take on a life of her own. And I trust that in that journey, like I will be deeply, deeply gifted. It will take me exactly where it'll feed me in return, however it's going to.
I love how you address the book as a woman, as a being, right? Like a life of her own. It's this like living thing that's going out and connecting and serving. And it's like a piece of you, a part of you that you are giving to the world to be able to heal and serve and just remind women that they're not alone and that they're worthy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And men who relate to that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I love it. I wanted to ask something about doing this book, getting your message out, being a coach and a mentor and a healer. How do you balance serving people and showing up in the kind of influencer, leader, thought leader role, as well as creating happiness and playing and having fun without, let's say, having the intention of serving someone else and serving people in the world? How do you marry the two? How do you bring the two together?
I think it's really from balance and how you structure your day, honestly. I mean, like a huge shift happened for me the day that I realized that I shouldn't just wake up and like get on my phone and start responding to emails and like creating content. Like I spend the first 4 hours of my day serving myself. Wow. You know, I journal with my dreams. I meditate. I eat breakfast. I go to yoga. I walk my dog. I shower. You know, I'm doing all of the, I mean, I get up at 6 and I don't start working until 10. Yep. And so can you prioritize yourself as the first thing in your day? I mean, it's like those simple switches. It makes huge differences because it just, then you're starting your day from serving you. And then that creates the rest of the structure of the day. So can I meet all my own needs before I start listening to client messages, before I start writing social posts, before I start responding to emails?
So good. I love it. I think I really love how you start at 10. Me and my girlfriend, we usually start at 11 in our day because she likes to sleep in. She likes to sleep until like 7. I'm like, okay, we'll do that. But I love it because the first part of our day is like dedicated to our morning routine, really having the spaciousness, the feeling of not being in a rush, because it can be so easy to get up and just be like, okay, let's check things off the box. And it becomes a completionist kind of, I get my worthiness from action, from like completion and progress and stuff. And it's like, no. Like, how do I recognize that I'm already more than enough? I'm already totally worthy, totally loved. And just I think it's the action and intention of giving ourselves the spaciousness, especially of those like 30 minutes of saying, hey, what's going on? You know, if I'm being honest with myself, what wants to come through right now? Am I hearing myself? Am I hearing my soul? Am I hearing my intuition? And that is like literally the most valuable thing that we can do all day long, is give ourselves that space and that grace and that love to say, what's coming through, soul? What do you have to share with me? And I think that's honoring our highest self.
Yeah. And honoring that, like committing to that type of schedule, whether you wake up feeling like shit or whether you wake up feeling great. Because if you feel like shit, you might, like you said, be like, okay, I need something to fix this. I need to feel myself. I'm going to check my emails, something to be like, okay, I am okay, right? And so can you feel like shit and be like, I'm going to embrace this morning, embrace this process to feel into why I'm feeling it like shit, to embrace, to have some comfort with yourself. So self-care, do things that actually make you feel loved, make you feel comforted, make you feel nourished. so that you can have more energy for your day. And if you wake up feeling amazing, then like, can you be in a place of gratitude for yourself and for your life, and to be in that place of like, yay, celebration, you know, on your own before you start celebrating it and sharing it with other people.
Yeah, I love it. We've covered so much gold in this, Charlotte. I want to know if there's any final takeaways, things that you wanted to share with our audience about around being worthy, anything that we didn't cover yet in the interview?
The only little thing is that, like, at the beginning you read my bio, and and so the only thing I just wanted to express is that at the very end, you know, I say how my passion is helping people take those difficult pieces and transform them into gold.
Yeah.
And so I just want to like reiterate that and explain that these always is gold within whatever you're struggling with, and my passion is really helping people transform that. And because I do believe everything that we're served is a gift, every emotion that we feel is a gift, and it's here to serve us, and is going to gift us with wisdom, with insights, with growth in an amazing way. And so so I just wanted to reiterate that it's not just about moving through something, it's actually about receiving something through every experience.
I love it. I love it, Charlotte. This is gold, gold, gold. And I want to tell people how they can stay connected with you, and what do we want them to do next?
Sure. Well, so my book is coming soon. It's just a few weeks out from launch on November 5th. Is when it'll be live on Kindle and in print very soon after that.
Okay.
And so they can go to tobeworthybook.com and get on the list where you'll be notified exactly when it goes live, so you can order your copy.
I love it. And when this podcast airs, it'll be already released, so people will be able to find it on Amazon. They'll be able to find it, just
perfect.
Google it, To Be Worthy book, as well as I'm sure on the website people will be able to purchase copies there as well.
Yeah, there'll be links on the website to the Amazon order pages. Yes.
Sweet. So people can get your book, and how would they contact you directly if something you said struck a chord with them and they felt like called to connect with you? How could they do that, Charlotte?
They can at charlotte@bigbeautifulbreakthrough.com. You can email me, or you can find me on Facebook and send me a message in Facebook Messenger.
Yeah. I love it. I love it. So they would spell your name CHARLOTTE ELEA, and right. I know you have an accent mark on your E of your last name. Yes. I think they can, if they just spell it Eléa, like they can find you like that.
Yeah, they'll find me. Yeah.
Cool.
Awesome. I think I'm the only Charlotte Eléa out there, so yeah.
I love it. I love it. Charlotte, you are just amazing, bringing so much love and compassion, space, and grace to people and to whatever they're going through. And I know that the world needs that today. And a lot of people are counting on you, counting on this book. So keep sharing it, keep, just showing up, playing, having fun, and trusting that everything's working out. It's been an honor to have you on.
Thank you, Chris. It's really been an honor to talk with you today. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, and we'll see you soon, okay?
Okay.
All right, take care.